Welcome back, and we are studying about the music. And the sound recording was also a major influence on the development of the popular music games because it enabled recording of the sounds and the bands to the widely distributed. The introduction of the multi-track recording system had a major influence on the rock music, and a band that their music producers could over debug many layers of the instruments track and vocals, creating new sounds that would not be possible to live as a performer. Jazz evolved and became an important genre of the music over the course of the 20th and the during the second half of that century. Rock music did the same. Jazz is an American musical art form that originated in the beginning of the 20th century in African American communities in the southern United States from the influential platforms of the musical instruments. During the second half of the century, rock music did the same. Jazz is an American musical art form that oriented in the beginning of the 20th century in the African American communities in the southern United States from a confluence of African and the European music traditions. The style West African pedigree is evident in its use of the blue notes, improvisations, and many other swung notes. Rock music is a genre of popular music that developed in the 1950s from the 1960s. Rock and roll, rockabilly, blues, and the country music. The sound of rock often revolves around the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar. It uses a strong backbeat laid down the rhythm section along with the guitar or keyboards, saxophones, and the blues styles harmonica are used as a soloing instruments in its pursuit form of it had three chords, a strong insistent back beat and a catchy melody. Traditional rhythm section for the popular music in the rhythm guitar, electric bass guitar, and drums. Some bands also have a keyboard instruments such as organ, piano, or since the 1970s analog synthesizers. In the 1980s, pop musicians began using digital synthesizers such as the DX7 synthesizer, electronic drum machines such as TR-808, and bass devices such as TB-303, synth bass keyboards in the 1990s. An increasingly large range of the computerized hardware, musical devices, and instruments, and the softwares. Digital audio workstations were used in the 2020s, and the soft synthesis and the computer's music apps made it possible for the bedroom producers to create and record some types of the music such as electronic dance music in their own home, adding sampled digital instruments and editing the record digitally in the 1990s. Some bands in the genre, such as nu metal, began including DJs in their bands, and DJs create music by manipulating and recording music on record players or CD players using a DJ mixer. Innovation in music technology continued into the 21st century, including the development of the isomorphic keyboard and the dynamic tonality. And now we are studying about the creation and the composition of the music. Composition is the act or a practice of creating a song and instrumental music piece. A work with both singing and instruments are another type of the music in many cultures, including the Western classical music. An act of the composing, also including the creation of the music notation, such as the sheet music score, and the performed by the composers or by other singers or musicians. In popular music and traditional music, the act of composing, which is typically called songwriting, may involve the creation of the basic outline of the song called the lead sheet, which sets out the melody, lyrics, and the chord progression. In classical music, the composer typically orchestras his arranger to do the orchestration, and in some cases, the songwriter may not use notation at all and instead compose the song in her mind. and then play are recorded from the memory. In jazz and the popular music, notable recordings by influential performers are given the weight and that written scores play in the classical music. Even when the music is noted relatively and perceivably as in classical music, there are many decisions that a performer had to make because the notation does not specify all of the elements of the music. Perceivably, the process of the deciding how to perform music that has been perceivably composed and noted in terms of the interpretation. Different performers' interpretations of the same work of the music can vary widely in terms of the tempos and are chosen and the playing or singing style of the perhaps of the melodies and the composers and the songwriters who present their own music are interpreting their songs just as much as those who perform the music of others. The standard interpreting body of the choices and the techniques present at a given time and a given place is referred to as performance practice, whereas interpretation is generally used to mean the individual choices of a performer. Although musical compositions often uses musical notations and has a single author, that is not always the case. A work of music can have multiple composers who often occurs in popular music when a band collaborates to write a song or influential theaters. When one person writes the melodies, a second person writes the lyrics, and a third person orchestra the songs. In some styles of the music, such as the blues, a composer, songwriter create, perform, and record new songs or pieces without ever writing them down in the music notation. A piece of music can also be composed with the words, images, or computer programs that explain notable how the singers or the musicians should create musical sounds. Examples ranges from the avant-garde music that uses graphic notation to text compositions such as Os Dan Sieben to computer programs that select sounds for the musical pieces. Music that makes heavy use of the randomness and the chance is called the aristocratic music and is associated with the contemporary composers active in that makes heavy use of the randomness and the chances is called the historic music and is associated with the categophoric composers active in this 20th century such as John Cage and Morton Freedom. A man commonly known example of the chance-based music is the sound of wind chimes jingling in a breeze. The study of composition has been dominated by examination of the methods and practices of the Western classical music, but the definition of the composition is the broad enough to exclude the creation of the popular music and traditional music. Songs and instruments pieces are well as simultaneously improved works like those of the free jazz performers and the African pursuits such as avid drummers. And the performance is the physical expression of the music which occurs when a song is sung or when a piano piece, electric guitar, melody, symphony, drum beat, or other musical parts is played by the musicians. In the classical music, a musical work is written in the music notation by a composer and then it is performed once the composer is satisfied with its structure and instrumentations. However, it gets performed. The interruption of a song or a piece can evolve the change. In a classical music, instrumental performers, the singers or coordinators may gradually make changes to the phrases of the tempo of a piece. In popular and traditional music, the performers have a lot more freedom to make changes to form of music or a piece as such. In popular traditional music styles, even when a band plays a cover song, they can make changes to it, such as adding a guitar solo to one, inserting an introduction. A performance can either be planned out and rehearsed when it is a norm of the classical music. Jazz big bands are popular music styles are improvised over a chord progression, which is a norm in the small jazz and the blues groups. The orchestra, the concert bands, and the chorus are led by the conductor. Rock, blues, and jazz bands are usually led by the band leader. A rehearsal is a structured repetition of a song or a piece of the musicians until the parts are together, form a rhythmic and the turning perspectives. Improvements is the creation of the musical idea, a melody, or other musical line created on the spot, often based on the scales or pre-existing melodic riffs.